We love complex, thought-provoking video game bad guys as much as the next person, but sometimes the best villains are just the ones that are the most intimidating. You know, the real over-the-top, evil, badass bad guys. For different reasons. We got a lot of cool villains to talk about today in games, so let's get started off with number 10. It's Atom Smasher from Cyberpunk 2077. You know he's bad news the second you see him. He doesn't actually appear all that much and doesn't even speak too much, but he still manages to leave a huge impression just on account of his massive stature and sociopathic behavior. Seriously, this guy shows up in person like 2 times total in the game, 3 if you count the Silverhand flashback, but he's a small presence in the game, but his lack of appearances almost adds to his intimidating aura. There are no near escapes to just make him look weaker, no characterization to make us identify with him. He's just a monster of a man who exists purely to make life miserable for you. He's a looming threat that's just hanging over the entire game that doesn't really get paid off until the end. Everyone's always talking about Atom Smasher in the game, building up his reputation as pure evil, but you only really get a taste of it when you first meet him. Here, he's only ever seen through a security monitor and like through someone else's eyes, and he has like 1 line total, but that's all we need. Just look at him. That's last boss material. And no surprise, that's exactly what he is. You know, you see a cybernetic tank like Atom Smasher here, and you want to know what this guy's deal is. And the game tells you, but never directly. They make sure to retain his mystique for the entire story up until you finally take him out at the end. He's a villain where less is actually more. You don't need to see him do anything to know this is just a scary dude. But if you do want to see Smasher in action, then the Cyberpunk anime Edgerunners does really do a good job of portraying just how much of a killing machine this guy can really be.
Smasher. Told you, Johnny boy. Told you I'd end you someday.
Now over at number 9, does anybody remember the bad guy from the first Uncharted? He's just like a dollar store Belloc. He doesn't even like leave much of an impression. But in the sequel, clearly they wanted to step things up. You know, from your generic evil treasure hunter in the first game to this guy, Zoran Lazarevic, a towering monster of a man with an entire army at his beck and call. Now, a little bit of a step up from the pirates in the first game, Lazarevic is the perfect bad guy foil for Nathan Drake. He's this brutal, uncompromising tyrant who actually manages to create an air of danger whenever he shows up in person.
Because they had the will to do what other men would not. Compassion is the enemy. Mercy defeats us.
His mere presence cuts through the, you know, usually kind of goofy world of Uncharted. Things get serious when this dude shows up. And even Nathan Drake can't, like, you know, charisma his way out of it. He's a ridiculous character, of course, really over the top, just like a total megalomaniac who praises Hitler and Stalin and Pol Pot as like the best guys. Graham McTavish just sells every line this guy says. The voice actor really crushes it here. His intensity really sells the role and makes what otherwise would be kind of a schlocky bad guy pretty memorable. Probably like one of the best in the series. He still does the usual like action movie bad guy blunders. He catches Drake several times only to then let him get away. But this time the good guys feel like they have to work for it a little harder. And of course, you can't talk about this guy without at least mentioning his final pain in the ass boss fight. He's not just an unfair boss. He's probably, like we said, one of the best bad guys in the Uncharted series. He's got the perfect amount of hamminess and genuine pure menace to keep things fun, but adds a sense of danger to the adventure that just wasn't in the first game.
Hold your fire! Hold your fire! He's mine.
Sorry, pal. You're not my type.
Next over at number 8, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Light spoiler warning here, but you know, if there's one thing the developers Machine Games really know how to do, it's how to make a good Nazi villain that you love to hate. The Wolfenstein games turned that into like an art form. That was just like a nonstop cavalcade of the most despicable characters in gaming, like cartoonishly grotesque. So For their Indiana Jones game, the studio managed to conjure up all their powers to make what may be like the platonic idea of a Nazi movie bad guy. It takes a while to actually finally meet up with this antagonist. He doesn't show up until the end of the Vatican hub, really, which is quite long, but man, he makes a hell of a first impression. Emmerich Voss here, leader of the Nazi Special Antiquities Division, is both a physical and mental threat who excels at psychological manipulation to get what he wants. The thing about this guy is that he thinks he's so damn smart, but his manipulation tactics are clearly as blunt and cruel as possible. So they only work on other idiots or people who were easily manipulated, people who get methodically broken down by Voss until, they give in. The impressive thing about Voss is that he's a clown. He's like this preeningly little freak that thinks he's way smarter and cooler than he is. But he still manages to be a scary presence because he's like a monster pretending to be a human. He looks like if a marionette came to life with like inhuman movement. He's very stiff. He's got this uncanny alien smile. And he actually seems like he poses an intellectual threat to Indiana Jones. There's a couple of scenes in the game where the two kind of spar with one another in terms of their, encyclopedic knowledge of ancient history. It's cool to see.
Yes. Give me your expert opinion, Dr. Jones. What about archaic Sumerian?
This is not cuneiform.
Yet some of it looks like a syllabary, not an abjad. Interesting, no?
There's clearly a fully representational figure here, you blind.
Very well, but then how do you explain the triangular lines? This is far beyond your understanding, Dr. Jones.
Archaic Sumerian predates earliest known Egyptian hieroglyphs by centuries, you... It's Adamic. Isn't it?
So for as much as Voss ends up being like the butt of the joke, suffering a lot of indignities over the course of the whole adventure, he still manages to be intimidating despite everything because you never really quite get one over on him. It's always like one step forward, two steps back with this guy. At least until his inevitable and extremely satisfying demise. Now over at number 7, with the Resident Evil games, the bad guys are either string-beanly little scientists or mindless biomonsters with very little in between. It's not to say that the series doesn't have its fair share of great and iconic villains, because it does, from my man Albert Wesker to Mr. X to Nemesis and more. There's a lot of awesome and scary villains to pick from in the series, but the most intimidating, probably going to be the Patriarch of the Baker Estate, the laughing lunatic himself, Jack Baker. What makes this guy so scary compared to the other Resident Evil baddies is that he's not too cool for school, and he's not this mindless, insane monster either. He's just like a horror movie. He's just the pure malevolence who delights in torturing and killing anyone foolish enough to stumble into his house of horrors. Gameplay-wise, that also makes it even more effective. He's this unkillable stalker who chases you around the halls. But what makes him so intimidating is that he doesn't just want to kill you, he wants to play with you. He wants to make you suffer, so he's not going to kill you quick. He's going to make it seem like you're safe, only to suddenly smash through a wall and shatter any sense of security you probably had. He's going to cut off your leg and then like give it back to you for some reason just to give you a chance. Like, compared to your average Resident Evil freak, this guy is a lot more to understand. He's a little bit more complicated. Other than the pallid skin and dead eyes, he mostly appears human. But as it quickly becomes clear, this guy isn't just your average horror game unstoppable thing. He's literally immortal and can regenerate from nearly any damage, so he doesn't even avoid it. He revels in destroying his own body just to scare you. It's cool.
You're wasting your time.
Every fight with this guy is a masterclass in making an intimidating boss. If you try to ram him with a car, he just climbs on top and starts controlling the car with you inside. He'll set himself on fire, he'll cut off his own limbs, he doesn't care. He doesn't even seem all that interested in killing you. He's mostly just here for the fun of it. He is the closest thing we're going to get to like a Deadite from Evil Dead in a Resident Evil game, equal parts goofy and scary in the best possible ways. Now over at number 6, The story of the Far Cry games is split between two eras, really, before and after Far Cry 3. For better or worse, Far Cry 3 defined what the series would be going forward. An open-world, first-person action game with a big showcase villain. The funny thing is, I don't think Ubisoft quite knew what they actually had at first with Far Cry 3. You know, it was really only later, when the game was finally starting to come together, that everyone collectively realized how lucky they were that they got Michael Mandow for the role of Vas Montenegro, the pirate leader and boss of the first island in Far Cry 3. I only say that, you know, they didn't know what they had, because if they did, Vas would have been the main bad guy. They wouldn't have unceremoniously killed him off halfway through. They actually would have made him the central antagonist like they ended up doing for every game after this one. For as great as some of the bad guys are in later games in the series, nothing else quite manages to capture that lightning in a bottle they had with Vas. Seriously, Michael Mandow, great actor in a lot of things, and he crushes it here.
That is crazy. I like this phone. This is a nice fucking phone. So, what do we have here? Grant and Jason from California, huh? Well, I hope your mama and your papa really, really love you, because you two white boys, you look very expensive. And that's good, because I like expensive things. I'm sorry, what did you say? What did you say? Do you want me to slice you open like I did your friend? Shut the fuck up! Okay? I'm the one with the fucking dick.
This character is pure live-wire, unpredictable intensity. He seems like he can and will snap at any moment. The way he constantly gets in your face while speaking and monologuing, not menacing exactly, but weirdly rushed and off-kilter. He's just a guy you know there's something wrong with, and if he catches you, then things are gonna get ugly. He only shows up in person like 4 times total, but every time he does, it's intense and really awesome. There's a lot of bad guys like Vas in Far Cry 3, guys that get up in your face and go on long-winded monologues and demonstrate how evil they are, but Vas is the standout, and most of that comes down to performance and the excellent animation that manages to catch every little detail in the brilliantly eccentric performance. Even though he's killed halfway through and was just one bad guy among many, he made such a statement, and that's why he earns a spot on this list. Next, over at number 5, Khotun Khan from Ghost of Tsushima. This guy's just about everything you could want in a good bad guy. He's physically imposing, he's calculating, intimidating, and isn't above using whatever dirty tricks he can to get his way, which is made abundantly clear in the opening. That first scene tells you everything you need to know about Khotun Khan. He seems like he's just a mindless warlord, but he's smart, offering an olive branch in one hand and a sword in the other. He promises mercy to those that submit and eternal suffering to those that oppose him, which kind of forces friends to fight friends as people grow more desperate under this guy. On an island where everyone is obsessed with honor, all the Khan wants to do is win, and that's what makes him so scary. He wears the coat of an honorable enemy, but when push comes to shove, he'll do anything to conquer this island and kill the ghost who's interfering with his schemes. He's a villain that can be the devil on your shoulder and the guy who will just straight up wreck you in a fair fight. He's a dangerous warrior and a guy who will play psychological games on his captives. He's just constantly dangerous and unpredictable, and that's what makes him so intimidating. Now at number 4, Darth Vader. I mean, what do I need to say? It's Darth Vader. It's an all-time classic villain that has been misused in the past, but when they know how to use him right, especially in video games, he still is one of the all-time best to ever do it. And by it, I mean be scary and use a lightsaber. Sure, there's plenty we can talk about Anakin Skywalker with him being a badass if you really want to think about it, but, you know, really, once the mask is on, we're talking OG trilogy, the guy was scoring wins left and right. I'm pretty sure the only fight he ever lost was against his own son, and that's actually kind of badass, and it was probably because he was going easy on him. Okay, now in the Jedi series by Respawn, that is Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, they make old Darth Vader the terrifying presence he was always meant to be, showing up at the worst possible moments to wreak havoc and leave the heroes reeling. In Fallen Order, they save him for the very end after defeating the final boss, the Second Sister.
Not
That doesn't look good.
It isn't. It's him.
Darth Vader just shows up and absolutely wreaks havoc on the secret underwater base of the Inquisition. The game practically feels like a horror game for this last little bit. There's literally nothing you can do against him, and you only manage to escape by double teaming him, and even that's still enough. It was just enough to hold him off, really.
Surrender the holocron.
I'll never give it to you.
We shall see.
And in the second game, Darth Vader gets an unequivocal win in the hardest boss fight in the game, where even when you win, you still lose. He comes bursting in right when it seems like the story is over, wrecks everything, and then leaves the rest of the story in shambles. So all that's left is to pick up the pieces. And really, that's good use of Darth Vader moving forward. I mean, they did it in Rogue One. They had him show up, do some scary shit, and leave. It's like the Star Wars universe, you know he's out there, you know he's in power. It's just a matter of time whether or not you'll see him. These games show Darth Vader at the height of his powers, and he is pure intimidation. Now, down at number 3, The Legend of Zelda series. Look, for like what is normally such a cartoony, kind of kid-friendly series, shit always gets real when Ganondorf shows up. His true menace first appeared in Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64, where even with such rudimentary graphics, the music, the presentation, the entire atmosphere around him told you that this guy was a badass. The trend continued into all the follow-ups. Ganon's appearance in Twilight Princess especially just oozes menace for the brief moments he's actually present. Another game that saves Ganon's best for last is Wind Waker, where he doesn't even transform into his iconic pig monster form, but instead fights you man to man after giving this haunting speech. Tears of the Kingdom brings Ganon back yet again, and this may be his best appearance yet, with a full backstory and one of the most epic and challenging final bosses in the whole series' history. Ganon is only ever a small part of these games, but he always leaves a big impression whenever he finally actually shows himself.
Is that all?
Now, down at number 2, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, one of my favorite games. Let's talk Colonel Volgin. This guy is just the worst. Like, there is nothing redeeming about this guy. Every scene he appears in, he's either torturing, abusing, or just straight up murdering someone. You know how there's like the standard torture sequences that appears in these games, Usually they're pretty straightforward. Snake gets strapped to a big chair and gets electrocuted for a while. It's still intense, but they're nothing compared to the torture scene in this one, Metal Gear Solid 3, where Volgin first beats the absolute crap out of Snake. And then tortures him mercilessly in one of the most intense sequences in the entire series. This guy is seriously messed up. We'd be here all day just trying to list his crimes, his manipulation, the way he talks to people, everything.
Colonel,
Even if they are our enemies, they're still our countrymen.
But it won't be me that pulled the trigger. It'll be our friend, the American defector.
You're going to nuke your fellow Russians?
Remember the Alamo.
Colonel!
He's so bad, so it's very intensely satisfying when you finally kill him. Metal Gear Solid 3 does the smart thing by giving you a sympathetic villain in the boss, someone who knows the protagonist personally and is a complex and conflicted bad guy, but then they also have Volgin, this unrepentant scumbag who raises the stakes just by being around, and who you just want to see dead, and he works perfectly. Now down at number 1, Sephiroth. Listen, these days, Sephiroth is seen as more of a pretty boy anime punchline than a serious bad guy, but if you go back to the original Final Fantasy VII, back when it first came out, that guy is legitimately scary in the game. Remember the first time he appeared? He shows up completely out of left field at the top of Shinra Tower, where you follow a trail of blood to the president's office, only to find him dead. His next major appearance is that big flashback where Sephiroth goes insane and burns the village down, in one of the most iconic moments in video game history. You've probably seen it. You know, the image of Sephiroth walking through the fire with his big-ass sword, with his sinister as hell theme song plays. Man, that just is burned into all of our memories. What happens next? You find the Midgar Zolom, or serpent, impaled on a tree. Its blood sprayed everywhere. These are scenes straight out of a horror movie, not an RPG. And they give the original Final Fantasy VII a layer of tension and mystery and mood that a lot of other RPGs just don't have. Yeah, he's got big, white, flowing hair. He's handsome. He's got a cartoonishly long sword. But he was scary as hell back in the day. Like 80% of it comes down to his music, though. I will say that theme still sends shivers down my spine. Woo. When you hear his theme, something bad is gonna happen. You count on it. But my friends, those are 10 very intimidating video game bad guys. You know, there are a lot more out there. We can only ever cram so many on one list, so let us know your picks in the comments. We'd love to make more of these. But if you like talking video games with us every single day, clicking the like button helps us. That's all you gotta do. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.